in the ileum that brings about the process or facilitates the process of absorption of food. Of course, after mechanical and chemical breakdown of food into simple substances, these food materials or the nutrients or the products of digestion have to be absorbed into the body. The materials of digestion have to be absorbed into the body. And that's why we talked about the process of absorption. And we said that the process of absorption is actually facilitated by an important structure in the ileum known as the villus. Many of these structures are known as villi, the ones or the structures that bring about absorption of the food materials into the body. We talked about the adaptations of the ileum to the function of absorption of food materials. For example, we said that they are long to increase the surface area for absorption to take place. They are highly coiled, thus slowing down the movement of food materials, giving more time for digestion. We said that they have a large number of villi and microvilli that increase the surface area for the process of absorption to take place. Now, in this session, we are moving from the ileum to the colon. We are moving from the ileum to the colon, or what you call the large intestines. Apart from that, we are going to be looking at something also very important known as assimilation. Assimilation. Spelling of assimilation is A-S-I-M-I-L-A-T-I-O-N. Assimilation. Now, what is assimilation? That is where we want to begin from, because after the food has been absorbed, it must be used. Now, when we talk about assimilation, this is the incorporation. We define assimilation as incorporation of products of digestion into cell metabolism. Incorporation of them in their metabolism. So we are asking ourselves, what is the fate of these products of digestion? How are they going to be utilized? That is what we are interested in under assimilation. How are these food substances that have been absorbed into the body going to be used by the body? There are three categories that you have talked about that you're going to be paying much attention on. That is glucose, fatty acids and glycerol that are coming from digestion of lipids, of course. Then amino acids that are coming from the digestion of the proteins. So you could be asked a question in an exam to explain how the products of digestion are assimilated into the body. To explain how the products of digestion are assimilated into the body. Then in that case, you need to tell us how glucose is going to be assimilated or how it is utilized by the body, how the fatty acids and glycerol are assimilated into the body, and how amino acids are assimilated into the body. We begin with glucose. Glucose. Where did glucose come from? The digestion of starch. So glucose, one, it is oxidized or broken down. When you talk, is the breakdown of this food material in presence of oxygen to release energy. So you're saying that glucose, one, it is oxidized to release chemical energy. Glucose is oxidized to release chemical energy during respiration. It is broken down to release chemical energy during respiration, and excess is going to be stored in the body in form of the under the skin of the body. So we are saying this is how glucose is utilized. It is utilized by being oxidized to provide energy. And number two, the excess, supposing we have excess glucose, let's say you are taking in excess glucose, the excess is converted into glycogen and stored in the skeletal muscles. Stored in the skeletal muscles, or can also be converted into fats for storage under the skin. For the form 2s, form 3s and form 4s, when you talk about the excess glucose being converted into glycogen, this is a concept that you already understand. Where did we talk about this? We looked at the breakdown or the storage of excess glucose in form of glycogen under excretion and homeostasis. How the body manages, or how the body makes use of the excess glucose that could be found in the body system. We are saying that insulin hormone is the one responsible for this, for conversion of the excess glucose into glycogen for storage. The second component that is assimilated are proteins. Proteins. How are they assimilated into the body? What is the simplest form of proteins? We saw under digestion in the ileum, the proteins being, or the peptides being broken down into amino acids. So under proteins, we are mainly concentrating on the amino acids, how they are utilized in the body, or how they are assimilated into the body. One, the amino acids, that is the proteins, are used in repair and replacement of worn out tissues and structures. Repair and replacement of worn out tissues and structures. So any repair of body parts and replacement of worn out parts of the body or the cells is carried out by the proteins. Number two, synthesis of new cells. Synthesis of new cells. So cells are going to divide and increase in number, and this is going to result into growth. So proteins are important for growth and development. So number two, we are talking about synthesis of new cells. Hence, growth. Synthesis of new cells, hence growth. Next, synthesis of enzymes, hormones and antibodies. Synthesis of hormones, enzymes and antibodies. At the beginning of nutrition, we talked about the chemicals of life, specifically the proteins, carbohydrates and lipids. And under proteins, we said that they are used in formation of very important components in the body known as enzymes and hormones. And when it comes down to the enzymes, we said that enzymes, these are proteinous substances or structures that are protein in nature. And these structures are very important. For example, we've just seen enzymes bringing about the breakdown of food substances, or speeding up the breakdown of different metabolic processes within the body. Fatty acids and glycerol. Fatty acids and glycerol, that is the next one. Fatty acids and glycerol. These ones are coming from lipids. They are converted into fats and stored in the body, in the adipose tissue, under the skin, and around the body organs. So, function number one, how the fatty acids and glycerol are used, or how the lipids are used, we are saying that immediately they get into the bloodstream, they got converted into fats. And these fats can be stored in the body under the adipose tissue. The adipose tissue, remember, is found under the skin or beneath the skin. And this is very important in insulation, protecting our bodies against excessive loss of heat. Apart from that, the fatty acids and glycerol, these fats get deposited around body organs. For example, when they get deposited around the heart, the eye, for example, the kidneys, they act as a shock absorber against injury to these important organs in the body. So they are converted into fats for storage in the adipose tissue, thus offering insulation. And number two, around the body organs, protecting these body organs. Number two, they act as insulators against heat loss. We have just mentioned that by the fact that they get deposited under the adipose tissue. Number three, they provide metabolic water when oxidized. They provide metabolic water when oxidized. Now, I want to take you to Form 2 work, our Form 2s, our Form 3s, and Form 4s. Under excretion and homeostasis, we talk about desert animals, or those animals that are adapted to surviving in arid conditions. A good example is the camel. It has got a large deposit of fats in their humps. What do these fats do? Under insufficient supply of water, what happens? These fats stored in the hump of this camel gets oxidized to release oxygen, water, and energy. Carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So during that process of getting oxidized, metabolic water is produced, and this metabolic water is able to sustain the animal for more days even without getting water from the environment. So that is what we mean when we say that they provide metabolic water when oxidized. Next, they form part of the structure of the cell membrane. They form part of the structure of the cell membrane. A reminder of the structure of the cell membrane. We said that the cell membrane is made up of a phospholipid layer. A lipid layer sandwiched between two protein layers. So we are seeing the cell membrane being made up of the proteins and also the lipids. So we are saying they form part of the structure of the cell membrane. And lastly, they act as shock absorbers, protecting internal organs against mechanical damage. They act as shock absorbers, protecting internal organs from mechanical damage. So a good example of these organs are the heart and the kidneys. Around them, around these important organs, there is a layer of fats, and these fats are responsible for protecting these organs against injury. Next, amino acids. We have just talked about them. We said that these amino acids are the proteins, and we've said they're used for replacement and repair of worn out tissues or structures, synthesis of new cells, thus bringing about growth, synthesis of enzymes, hormones, and antibodies, and also being broken down to release energy under starvation. Now, having looked at assimilation, let us look at the large intestines or the colon. The large intestines or the colon. Why have we talked about assimilation first of all? Because we have just discussed absorption of the food materials at the ileum. Therefore, after leaving the ileum, it is important for us to understand how these absorbed food materials get utilized by the body, and that's why we have been talking about assimilation, the process of incorporating the products of digestion into cell metabolism. Now, the colon or the large intestines. This is the second last compartment of the digestive system, because after we move from the colon, we come down to the cecum and the appendix. Now, something very important to take note of here under the large intestines of the colon. Number one, no digestion occurs at this point. No digestion occurs at the colon. Number two, bacteria in the colon carry out synthesis of vitamin K, vitamin B1, vitamin B2, and vitamin B12. So we're saying that the colon is important in synthesis of these important vitamins by the help of bacteria. We are saying that vitamin K and vitamin B complex. When you talk about vitamin B complex, is vitamin B1, vitamin B2, and vitamin B12. Then, apart from that, water and is the rectum. After you move from the colon, that is the large intestines, we come to the colon. A reminder of the large intestines, you've said there is no digestion here. Number two, you've said that there is a presence of enzymes in some colons, some bacteria in the colons, and these bacteria bring about synthesis of important vitamins, vitamin B complex and vitamin K. Then we are saying that water is absorbed from the indigested food materials to form a semi-solid structure known as a feces. So let's now move down to the rectum. Rectum. This is the very last compartment of the digestive system. And here, feces are temporarily stored at the rectum. So the function of the rectum is temporary storage of feces. Number two, from this point, the fecal material is eliminated through the anal opening at intervals, of course, during or the times when you feel to respond to the call of nature. So we're saying that the fecal material accumulates at the rectum and reaches at a point whereby it has to be released or eliminated to the outside. We are saying that the feces are going to be eliminated through the anal opening or the anus, through or at intervals, based on how this fecal material has accumulated at the rectum. Now, that release of the fecal material or the release of feces to the outside is now known as egestion. Spelling of egestion is E-G-E-S-T-I-O-N. Egestion. When you talk about egestion, this is now that removal of the undigested food material in form of feces through the anal opening. So I want you to get the difference between ingestion and egestion. In ingestion, we have talked about intake of food, whereby we take the food materials through the mouth or orally. But what happens at the end when these food materials gets or ends up not being digested? The release of that undigested food materials is known as egestion. I could throw this question to you. State the difference between ingestion and egestion as used in digestion. State the difference between ingestion and digestion as used in and digestion as used in the process of digestion. So by that, we come to the end of our session. But this is what I want you to do, students. We can easily summarize the process of digestion by coming up with a table. How is this table going to be? Come up with a table of 6 columns. You could place an empty page, a new page, then come up with a page, a table of 6 columns and 5 rows. 6 columns, 5 rows. You can draw that in summary. Then, the first column, write down part of the alimentary canal. The second column, write down the digestive glands, the glands that are responsible for producing that digestive enzymes. The third column, digestive juice produced, the digestive juice produced. Next, on the column, the fourth column, the food acted on, which food is broken down. Then, the fifth column, write down the enzymes, and lastly, the substrate produced, what is going to be formed at the end of that process of digestion. When you write such a table, for example, you could come to a place, a part of the alimentary canal like the mouth. Then you ask yourself, at the mouth, which digestive glands are there? Of course, they are the salivary glands. Then you ask yourselves, what is the juice produced by the salivary gland? That is salivary juice or saliva itself. Then, which food is acted on? Which food is digested at the mouth with the action of the salivary enzymes? Of course, it is starch. Then you come to the examples of enzymes. We talked about 2 enzymes, the salivary amylase and ptyalin. And what is the substrate that is going to be formed at the end of the day? We said that the salivary amylase breaks down starch into maltose. So I've given an example of how you can come up with a summary of the process of digestion using the mouth and the components found there. We could go direct to the ileum, for example, ask ourselves, at the ileum, part of the alimentary canal, which digestive enzymes are produced? We talked about digestive glands. We talked about intestinal glands found in the intestinal walls. Which juice is produced? Intestinal juice, or what you call the succus entericus. Which foods are acted upon? You can write them down. Which enzymes are present in the intestinal juice or the succus entericus? And which food substrate is acted upon? So those are, or that is the quickest way of summarizing the whole process of digestion and being able to remember it even as you prepare yourselves for an exam or as you prepare yourself for the normal revision that you're doing back in your homes. Now, to finish, I have 2 questions for you students. Question 1, what is assimilation? This is what you have just looked at in a short while ago. What is assimilation? And part B, describe the fate of the end products of digestion in the bodies of a human being. Describe the fate of products of digestion. Describe the fate of end products of digestion in the bodies of a human being. In other words, we are asking you, what is going to happen to the products of digestion? That is what we have just talked about under assimilation. We have seen where the amino acids go to, where the fatty acids and glycerol go to, and where the glucose goes to. By that, we have come to the end of our session this evening, students, and I'm glad that you have been good listeners. And if you have any questions, I'm going to be picking them at this point. If there are none, then I would encourage you to continue sending in more questions in case you have any, so that we are able to assist you. Otherwise, I want to wish you a good evening ahead.
Shukran sana walimu.
Yes.
Kuna maswali yanauliza baba?
Yeah.
Hakuna maswali yanauliza.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Next year mtakuwa na barua ngumu sana.
Sana watoto wanasahau bwana.
Hata wamesahau kuandika.
Hata huko nyumbani, ukiuliza watoto kidogo kidogo, naona idea mawatoka kabisa.
Nyoma sana.
Sawa na thanks bro.
Sawa.
Ni yako tomeira. Otake jelire. Oyo akejelire. Ule tumusokeria. Igwa ko dare ni kumenya ate amene wajirite ni uraria no ria. Igende menyire ate ya ni tiwe udaririe. Nero wajirite ni gento kwalia na ide. Basi na tuwetekanira ogwo. Aya. Kwa hivyo ni yako tomeire tumucokeria. Aya. Sawa. Ndio ulishokia. Ni mradi ile vitima. Sawa. Ndio wewe shimenyerere. Nishimenyerere niyo menyerera icio reke nyingire gifidi. Naguo. Makaja makenda aitete aitete mwaga pesa kisha kiona, mwaga pesa kisha kiona, mwaga pesa kisha kiona, mwaga pesa kisha kiona. Dali dali daddy. Alright, ndani ya redio Chongwani ndio baragoni ya faraja, mpenzi msikilizaji, ikiwa ni Juma tatu tulivu tu ndani ya redio Chongwani ndio baragoni ya faraja, kipindi angari barizi tu. Leo nikiwa nazivalia njuga zake msemaji wa kijiji na ambaye kidogo kaelekea likizo, hivyo takuwa nawe papa hapa kwa muda wa mwezi mmoja isee. Kabla ya mtoto wa kiume huyo kuweza kurejelea. Hivyo natumai ubuheri wa afya. Hujambo na karibu tuweze kujumuika pamoja hadi pale itimiapo mida ya saa 1 kamili. Tuna lisali moja hivi ambalo limesalia tu. Siku inaweza kuwa busy sana hapa nchini na hata pia ugaibuni tu. Sijui ya kwako imekuwa kwaje mpenzi msikilizaji. Sijui pia jioni ya kwako iko vipi. Vyema tu uweze kusema nami. Jioni ya kwako na mchana wa kwako umekuwa kwaje tu. Tusemezane papa hapa ndani ya redio Chongwani, nikikupa tu pia mziki mtulivu tu utakao tu maruerue ya siku ya Jumatatu. Langu jina niite mtoto radia aweza kuihenya takuwa nawe ya iseni kwa rubani wako hadi pale timiapo mida ya saa 1. Shughuli hii itakuwa tunaifanya kwa muda wa siku kadhaa zijazo tu hadi atakaporejea msemaji wa kijiji Samora Kosgei na ambaye kiducho kaenda kupunga unyunyu kidogo ya kunywa maji ya Zamzam pamoja na yale ya madafu tu, akichanganya pamoja na kuoga na maji ya chumvi. Unaashiria ameenda Mombasa mtoto radia? Hapana. Good evening, unasikiliza ukiwa upande gani? 0717516031 80717516031 ndio nambari yangu ya SMS 0717516031, au pia unaweza ukanipigia simu 0717516010. Hapo unaweza ukasema nami. Siku ya leo hii ila tumeweza kuwapoteza watu wengine 13 kutokana na janga la corona hisi. Janga ambalo linazidi kutingisha ulimwengu mzima. Ni kwamba tayari watu wengine 13 wameanza kuaga dunia, huku idadi ya walioaga hapa nchini wakifikia sasa 382 wameweza kuaga dunia. Alafu kisha bana watu wengine 544 nao wameambukizwa virusi vya corona, huku idadi ya walioambukizwa hapa nchini ikifikia 22,597. 22,597 nao wameambukizwa virusi vya corona hapa nchini, huku 382 wakiaga dunia. Hata hivyo watu wengine wangapi hapa? Watu wengine 263 nao waliweza kupona virusi hivyo na kuruhusiwa kwenda nyumbani, huku idadi ya waliopona hapa nchini sasa ikifikia 8,740. 8,740. Hii ni idadi ya waliopona virusi vya corona hapa nchini kufikia sasa. Aidha, ni jambo la kutamausha sana kwamba mambo bado, idadi ya walioambukizwa sasa ulimwengu mzima imetimia milioni 18, na tulisema kwamba usihitaji kuwa katika orodha ile, usihitaji kuwa katika orodha hiyo, itakuwa si jambo bomba tu. Hata hivyo pia kumekuwa na mikutano hapa kule tu aisee, katika shughuli nzima ya kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba angalabu mswada ule wa ugavi wa fedha unapita. Pia Rashida Mana alivyokuwa anatangaza aliweza kudhibitisha kwamba wauguzi ama wahudumu wa afya 8 wameaga dunia, ikiwemo hivi majuzi nesi huyu kutoka pale Homadi. Tujuliane hali Jangwani. Halo. Yes, ujambo. Na ukoje? Wanakuita nani toka wapi? Naam, Heritage. Mimi niko mzima, namshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu. Aha. Siku ya kwako imekwaje? Kipi kimekubamba leo? Kipi kimekukera? Kuhusiana na janga la corona. Lakini wewe unajilinda vilivyo? Kama wewe unajilinda, basi usihofie yaliomo katika vitanda. Ndiposa tunasemaje? Wewe mwenyewe ukijilinda, ufuate maagizo tu inavyofaa, basi hata hautafika katika vile vitanda. Lakini usipofuata, basi una kila jambo la kuhofia, hakuna vitanda, kimaana utakuwa mteja wa vile vitanda siku moja. Hivyo jiangalie vilivyo bro. Safi, nashukuru. No? Okay. Asante sana. Niwape kipi leo? Leo niwape mziki upi? Huko eneo la Koro. Nauliza mziki nikubwagie mziki upi? Ngoma gani? Ngoma gani? Okay, karumba kamoja tu hivi. Ustie shaka, katashuka. Asante. Alright. Mtoto wa kiume huyo, yeye anasema yupo Ange. Anashangaa iwapo tu serikali ya jimbo imejiandaa. Umeshindaje mpenzi msikilizaji? Katika kipindi hichi tunaangalia jinsi mambo yalivyokuwa. Idadi ya walioaga wahudumu wa afya sasa imefikia 8. Wa hivi majuzi akiwa mtoto wa kike huyu toka Busia muuguzi tu, na inashangaza yani namna ambavyo kiduchu aisee swala hili linavyo chukuliwa na watu wengi. Jangwani, halo. Yes, msele kupe, hujambo? Mwana wako Sigei ameenda kupumzika. Lazima aende ajue hali nyumbani iko vipi. Hiyo kijiji ambayo yeye alichaguliwa kuwa msemaji, sasa ako huko akisema. Bas. Naam. Asante sana. Siku yako imekuwaje mzee wangu? Asante. Amen. Tutafika kwa hizo vitanda. Asante sana mzee wangu. Asante sana rafiki yangu. Chekuti itashuka. Wachungaji wote itakuwa inakuja kwa niaba yao. Asante. Shukrani. Sholenga. Pale nchini Tanzania, mpenzi msikilizaji, ni kwamba pale WhatsApp groups zimeweza kupigwa marufuku tu, sio kwamba zinaendeleza uchochezi pale Tanzania. Rais John Pombe Magufuli ni mmoja wale ambao kiduchu kukosolewa. Jamani, halo. Yesu, jambo. Mimi niko poa, Lengima mwenyewe. Ukoje? Kuna baridi. Waziri wa afya amesema tuvalie warm kidogo. Nama. Asante sana. Aha. Naam. Alright. Asante sana Lengima. Kipi kimekuuzi leo? Leo kipi? Ama kipi kimekufurahisha tu? Okay. Asante. Okay. Asante sana. Sholenga. Alright. Barabara kabisa. Basi zidi kusema nami awamu hii ya kujuliana hali tu. Uliko kukoje? Hali ya anga iko vipi? Hapa mjini Marsabit kijibaridi. Mimi mtoto radi inabidi naangalia jaketi 3. Jangwani, halo. Mtoto radi huyu msemaji wa kijiji kiduchu hayupo. Sasa mwenyewe ameenda likizo kidogo. Ameenda kuangalia kijiji watu wako vipi vijijini. Inabidi sasa Niko poa mie, sina neno. Sauti horo kukoje? Okay, uko sauti horo hali ikoje? Sauti horo hali ikoje? Naam. Hali iko sawa upande ule. Asante sana. Alright, asante sana. Salimia sana watoto wa South Hora. Wapenzi wetu tu upande huo. Nikupe hichi cha Awilo Longomba. Aliagiza jamaa hapo awali, lakini kabla jangwani. Hello. Yes, jambo. Yes, wanakuita nani toka wapi bro? Naam, Joshua, karibu sana. Umeshindaje bro? Kipi kimekuuzi leo? Kipi kimekujenga? Ati nani kula chakula? Hataki tufahamu hapo pa chakula, lakini hapajaharibika jambo. Wa mwisho hapa kabla sijakiachilia hichi jangwani. Hello. Yes, Alkano, jambo. Mimi niko poa, sina